All right, we're live. I'm back in Toronto. This is Ruve TV. I'm Ruve. We've got a different sort of format today. We're going to be using, well, YouTube. Usually, any viewers of the show would know that I'm a big fan of things like Periscope and Twitter, but I've been thinking about switching it up a little bit and using YouTube. They've got some really cool tools that they've made available around doing this kind of live format. The show today also is going to be a bit different than your typical ones, other than the fact we're using YouTube. We're going to be talking about media, independent films, and sort of the distribution sort of mechanisms that are happening in the space. You know, it's an area that I have a bit of interest in. A buddy of mine, you'll probably see his picture in the bottom right hand corner. SteveJay is actually a producer, an actor, a film aficionado, and he's been developing a series of films over the last few years, and one just recently got a pretty major distribution within the U.S. market. So we're going to talk to him in a few minutes in regards to how he's doing, what he's doing, and sort of the interesting new opportunities for video and distribution type activities. But I want to take a quick step back, just a brief moment here. I actually spent the last four days in Boston. You'll notice I'm wearing a new snazzy hat, which was actually custom designed and developed by William Carlton in North Boston. So I want to give a shout out to William. Nice job. He's given me two of these. It's one of a kind. It has a little Ruve on the inside and everything. Pretty cool little shop. So if you're ever in North Boston, definitely go check out William Carlton. Custom design. He'll measure your head. He uses vintage cloth from things like, well, old suits and things like that. So really cool guy, really interesting. You know, there's even a interesting herbal smell in the shop, which is kind of a cool little add-on. But worth a look if you're ever in North Boston. I actually spent the week in Boston at a tech conference. Surprise, surprise! It was the Red Hat conference. It was focused on enterprise technologies, open source. So we had a great time. Went to see a baseball game. Did a lot of interesting things. Had a pretty good time. So thank you to Red Hat for inviting me and bringing me to Boston. Next week, I'll be in Las Vegas at the Dell EMC World, which is sounding like it's shaping up to be a pretty good event. So you'll see some periodic broadcasts from that. But what I want to do now, I want to jump into the actual meat of this episode and introduce you to really an old friend of mine, Steve. I think we've known each other for probably upwards of 15, 16 years at this point. So hopefully you're coming through here. I think you're broadcasting from your car on a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, in the rain that's coming here in Toronto. Yeah.
It's not just a rain; it's like a torrential rain. I think there's flooding. They're saying it's like 100-year flood. They're evacuating islands in Lake Ontario. I don't know.
That's right. Sure. Yeah.
So Stevie, welcome to the show. Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you've been doing.
Yeah, I'm SteveJay. I'm a Canadian actor, so no one's heard of me. So yeah, I've been, I've done everything from, theater to, this independent film, many other independent films to, bit parts on things like Murdoch Mysteries to commercials, etc. So, and recently, over the last few years, I went from producing, like writing and producing some of my own stuff or being in some other people's stuff, but sort of helping produce a little bit, but always like in front of the camera as well, to going to the next sort of level of doing like features where I have like a major hand in producing. And again, like usually, either lead or supporting lead type of role. And then working with our distributors and that sort of thing.
So you've been developing a independent film over the last few years, Blood Empires. That's one of the things that sort of caught my attention. You had a kind of crowdfunding program a few years ago that I helped, I guess, contribute a little part to. So I felt sort of an active involvement, even though it was very, 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 very minor. But it's
it was
cool
key at the right time. It was key at the right time.
It's been fun to watch sort of your progression, how you go about marketing, creating, and distributing the film. And one of the things that's really interesting over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years is the web, and in terms of becoming a central point of distribution. And that's kind of one of the areas I wanted to talk to you about. There's things like Netflix, there's Hulu, there's Amazon, there's any slew of things like YouTube. I saw a stat, I think it was yesterday, saying that YouTube is the world's most watched broadcast TV network by like an order of magnitude, something like 1 billion views or something, 1 billion viewers. It's my question, I guess, the first one is, how's that changing the landscape of being a kind of independent film developer? Are the old rules, do they still apply, or are things changing?
Yeah, no, things are constantly changing. I think like most like almost everything we do nowadays, almost any job has a massive tech aspect to it, and web aspect to it, and it's all constantly changing. But yeah, definitely in film and television, like the overlap as well from your sort of I don't want to call it analog, but like your analog cable into your house, and how something like that would how you would market towards that, or sell your product to, whether it's Rogers here in Canada, or Time Warner Cable in the States, or whatever.
So,
It's all overlapping, because like you can have your cable, whatever, but you can also subscribe to Netflix and then watch your Netflix on your cable, but also watch it on your, you know what I mean? So it's constantly changing, and to try and as like YouTube, I mean, YouTube was huge, and then I think it became, we just all understood that, oh yeah, most little clips are going to be on YouTube, but to actually like market now, like, oh no, I'm going to market my television series on YouTube, is all of a sudden coming back again, and becoming a bigger thing, other than just showing my cat playing with a string.
Well, it seems that there's definitely a market for cats playing strings and various funny videos of whatnot. But I think the medium, I hate this term democratization, but it seems that now you don't need necessarily a big distribution deal. You can go and you can in essence bootstrap your own distribution. You can go and create the content. You can then distribute it to an audience. You can find the tastemakers, the influencers, get them on board, and I think that the opportunities for sort of independent film and filmmaking are changing. You don't need Hollywood to have Hollywood level access, and which is kind of cool to see. That said, you've got a kind of more traditional distribution deal with the film recently in the US. Tell me a little more about what that looks like.
Yeah, so our distributor, Factory Film Studio, they just like most distributors, every year there's different pitch times to different services, etc. And they're a fairly young company, but I think they've been around almost a decade, but obviously as a distribution company, that's pretty young. So I think this is only times of pitching to someone like like I mentioned, like to Time Warner Cable, Spectrum, which is sort of Time Warner, Time Warner. I'm not entirely sure, like that's more their knowledge area, factories, and Verizon and that sort of thing, and then like 26 other service providers, cable service providers. So it's a cable VOD, like video on demand, deal that they got that will go into 40+ million homes under, like I said, like cable, so more traditional style versus clicking on your Netflix, on your options on your television through This will be like right there. You click on your videos and you're like, oh, I can rent Blood Empires.
So it's almost like there's this old media mystique around being on cable or being on demand, or being in the Time Warner list of films to watch. You know, it's like the guy that creates a book. You know, do people read books? Do people buy books? I don't know, but everybody wants to be an author, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like you kind of need both. You need one for credibility and the other for I don't. It's almost like to impress your mother. You know, it's like I don't know what this web is, but I saw you on TV.
Yeah. No, that's I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. Yeah, I mean, technically, you could probably reach the same amount of people and get the similar return just by focusing. Like, we're also on like iTunes Canada and US and Amazon Prime and all those Googles and those Xboxes and all that sort of thing. But yeah, that and you're going to reach a massive amount of audience with that. But there's a little bit of an old school cred when you're on something like cable, video on demand, etc., where people can just click, like one click. They don't have to flip open their computer. They don't have to log into their account. They don't have to whatever. It's just click. It's almost like and this is a little segue, but like DVDs are still actually quite big in the States. I guess Canada, we're just, we don't care about them anymore or whatever. But I think the idea is because you can put a DVD in and you don't have to log in or whatever. You just put it in, you hit play, done. After it forces you to watch like all the ads and whatever.
Yeah, well, you still have to. Someone has to pay you at the end of the day. You know, one of the things I've heard you mention a few times, in our conversation here is the Canadian market, versus the American market. It seems Canada's a much smaller market. It's obviously just population wise.
Yeah.
As a sort of, as an actor, a producer, content creator, how difficult is it to sort of move beyond, the local market, or is there any desire to even, go beyond it? Maybe the local market's fine. I don't even know.
Yeah, no, there's actually, I mean, mainly because you want to reach as broad, as large an audience as you can. And I mean, for the example that, we through those different cable VODs in the States, we're reaching 40 million plus homes. Well, we don't have 40 million plus homes in Canada. We only have 37 million people total, and not every single person has a home. I don't think the babies out there have their own homes.
It's like pitching it's like that's like the New York area. That's like the New York City and surrounding area population. So it's like, hey, I could pitch an entire country, or I could pitch a city, or promote a city. So you're talking about scope and access. But I think on the other hand, there's a long list of successful Canadian, actors and so on that have sort of emerged out of this, especially in sort of the comedy space. When an area that I think you are quite familiar with. How those guys do it?
Do you mean like how did they do it as performers, or?
Well, there's Second City. There's there was this time, I think in the mid '70s, early '80s, where there was just about every notable actor was a Canadian. It seemed.
And Second City's you mean like SCTV and that sort of thing? I mean, that's an interesting situation where Ivan Reitman and almost all the rest of them all went to Mac, I believe, McMaster University. And that was part of it. And then a bunch of them also went and all auditioned at the exact same time for, I think, one of the first Second City main stage troops. And then that's where you brought in like your Jane Eastwoods and there was a few other people. Oh, and I was just watching Andrea Martin the other night on Seth Meyers, and she was talking about I think it was at one of those shows. And then they all met there, and then talk about like sort of independent producing and just making things happen. That's what they did. That was a whole different unique time where they kind of got together and just said, and the fact that you had somebody like Reitman, and yeah, it's sort of driving that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like if you have somebody who obviously now, I mean, we can look back and be like, well, of course. But no, I mean, I think I meet people all the time who are like a Reitman or whatever, who are driven to make things happen. And yeah, I think I completely segued off into
Yeah.
some
Well,
desert.
I think if I could summarize, it's you're saying it's who you know and timing. So there was
Yeah,
this sort of
there you go.
a strange sort of period where there were a few very influential people. They all kind of knew each other, and they kind of rode a wave together. It seemed, and one of
Yeah,
the things that sort of is occurring to me is there's this new opportunity, and I'm not going to new of this generation. And as you could tell, I'm a tech. I look at reverse engineering and hacking the system to figure out how to take advantage of it. And I think the thing that I've noticed in the space right now is there still seems to be a lot of emphasis on traditional means and traditional means of promotion, traditional means of marketing, traditional, just traditional distribution channels. And it seems like there's an opportunity for someone to come along and say, those traditional approaches are dead. Or maybe dying. And there's this opportunity, surprise, surprise, called the internet. And there's, I don't think a lot of people are leveraging it to the extent that they could. And, I think that there is an opportunity for someone or some group of people to say, let's pool together, create a kind of, multi-channel approach on whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever the social media channel du jour is, and have the sort of ability to kind of dominate this new space in much the way that those folks did back in the 80s on broadcast television or Saturday Night Live or
yeah.
whatever the show was at the time. I haven't seen that yet, but I think that we're on the cusp of seeing that transition.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like it's that's the battle that I'm dealing with all the time. Like I'm trying to be more concise in the way I'm talking here. For example, like as a traditional performer, for example, I'm dealing with the fact that like I'm out there, I'm doing everything from stand up to clown to whatever, and I can make a room full of 100 people or 10 people or 2 people laugh or tell a story or do a play and get great reviews, etc. And then let's be honest, there's 3 brilliant kids in grade 6 who decide to do something, like tell a story about why the wheel fell off, or I was going to say wheelbarrow or wagon, but anyway, and they put it out there, and they've got 55 million hits because it's really funny and engaging. They may not be able to do it a second time or a third time, or then you also have, let's also be honest, like these quote unquote line stars who have these massive followings. And so when you're talking about trying to figure out like how to sort of hack and create this new entertainment system, how do we truly make it entertaining beyond maybe just in the moment, etc. And yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. It is such a difficult thing to unless you just like make a video with boobs and cats, because
yes.
apparently those are like 2 very popular things for people to click on, right?
There's a few of these YouTube stars that have done tremendously well, and they're making millions of dollars on these channels, and you got to wonder. Oh, you're hearing my dog in the background. That's the beauty of live stream here. So sorry, Roscoe, I'm on the internet. So ignore the dog here, but it's certainly an interesting time. I really am interested in seeing what you do next. Where can the audience sort of learn more about the film that you're currently just
Yeah. Well, they can go to bloodandfires.com, which actually takes you to our Facebook page, because it's really easy for us to load stuff on there and whatever. I mean, we also then have a page page is at WordPress, which is bloodempires.wordpress.com. So yeah, I mean, you can Google anything about Blood Empires. It's actually much one of only 2 titles on at least everything that I can find on the internet with us, and we were on there first. I think there's some random video game called Blood Empires, but if you Google Blood Empires, oh yeah, see it's there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. If you Google that, you'll find it, or SteveJay or whatever. You'll find everything about like where you can watch the film, where you can watch like clips or videos or stills or whatever. And hey, you know what would be awesome is that if anybody wanted to know something that we don't put out there and be like, hey, you're totally missing the mark on what we want to know, send us a message. I'll totally answer it.
Sure. So you're real SteveJay on Twitter, I think, is your handle. And we're always
Instagram. I'm fake SteveJay, so I have a bit of a
you're real and fake. Not to get confused with the real Donald J. Trump. That's a different dude. So it's fun. I want to have you on here again. I want next time you're doing a film and you're doing your funding, your crowdfunding. I got to get you on. I'll maybe I can help you get a few extra backers on the thing. And thanks again for kind of being my guinea pig today on the show. This is again the first time I've ever done this through the YouTube live Hangouts capability. So hopefully it's working all right. So let's keep in touch. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. And actually, I'll give you a quick plug on the next feature film we're doing is again with Peter Rajesh Joykum, the director from Blood Empires, and we will be starting a crowdfunding thing for that soon. And we want to raise some big dollars from that one because it's it's a phenomenal script. So
All right. Well, thanks again. So next week, I will be broadcasting from the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas at the Dell EMC World Conference. It should be exciting. Great hotel. So shout out to Dell EMC for making that happen. I'm not really sure what the schedule is or what we'll be showing, but I'm sure it'll be exciting when I do find that out. So again, from Toronto, I'm Ruv. Thanks again, SteveJay, for joining us today. Until next time, see you later.